So the movie I watched is Inglourious Basterds by Quentin Tarantino. Now, I've seen a lot of war movies, but this one is completely different. It's brutal, it's funny, it's suspenseful, it's totally unrealistic in all the best ways. Tarantino actually worked on Inglourious Basterds for years before it came out in 2009. He first started writing it in the late 90s, and originally it was supposed to be this huge war epic movie, but he wasn't quite able to figure out how to end it, so, he shelved it and he made Kill Bill and Death Proof. And then later, when he circled around back on Inglourious Basterds, he realized that he didn't need to have this realistic war movie. It just needed to be like his version of history. So that's when he came up with the idea of rewriting World War II so that Jewish soldiers and a French woman could take literal revenge on the Nazis. He described it as a spaghetti western but set in World War II, which fits perfectly because the movie feels more like a wild revenge fantasy rather than a real historical drama. The film takes place in Nazi-occupied France and follows two main storylines that eventually connect. The first one is about Shoshana Dreyfus, a Jewish woman who survives when her family is murdered by Colonel Hans Landa, nicknamed the Jew Hunter. Years later, she's running a small movie theater in Paris under a fake name. The second storyline follows Lieutenant Aldo Raine, played by Brad Pitt, who leads a team of Jewish American soldiers called the Bastards, and their goal is to strike fear into the Nazis by ambushing, torturing, and scalping them. They basically want to make the Nazis afraid of them. Eventually, Shoshana's movie theater is chosen for a big Nazi premiere where Hitler and all the top German leaders will be. Both her and the Bastards separately plan to blow up the theater that night. In the finale, their plans collide in this insane, explosive ending that rewrites history, and Hitler ends up dying in a movie theater instead of a bunker. When Inglourious Basterds premiered at the Cannes Film Festival, it got a long-standing ovation. People were blown away by Christoph Waltz's performance as Hans Landa, rightfully so. He has this polite, charming, terrifying, and manipulative character that he's able to convey all at once. Critics praised the writing and the tension and the way that Tarantino used dialogue to build fear instead of showing senseless violence like in a lot of his other films. However, some people criticized it for taking too many liberties with history and for turning something as serious as the Holocaust into this sort of revenge fantasy. Still, it made over $300 million worldwide and won Waltz an Oscar, and is now considered one of Tarantino's best films. For my third favorite character, I'm going to go with Sergeant Donnie Donowitz, also known as the Bear Jew. He's the guy with the baseball bat who beats up all the Nazis. He's brutal, but the reason I like him is because he represents how Tarantino flips the power dynamic, especially in this movie. Instead of Nazis being these unstoppable villains that the heroes can't defeat, Donnie turns it on them and he makes them terrified. For my second favorite character, I'm going to go with Lieutenant Aldo Raine, played by Brad Pitt. And he's sort of like this cartoonish cowboy character. He's serious, but he's also funny at the same time. He's not a perfect hero. Honestly, he's kind of insane sometimes. But he believes in justice through fear, which is perfect for the movie's theme. And for number one, of course, is going to be Hans Landa, known as one of the best characters, one of the best villains in fiction, at least in my opinion. Easily the best character in this film. Christopher Waltz makes him absolutely fascinating to watch, and you can just tell that Tarantino had so much fun writing him, and every scene he's in is just so unforgettable. For my third favorite scene, I picked the finale where Aldo carves a swastika into Landa's head. It's a very gruesome, disturbing scene, but it's Tarantino's way of just kind of saying that evil just doesn't get away clean. That's not how it's going to work in his movie. That's how it works in real life sometimes, but definitely not in his movie. That scar is going to be a mark of shame for Landa that's just not going to be able to be hidden. For my second favorite scene, I chose the opening scene at the French farmhouse, and it's honestly one of the tensest openings in any of Tarantino's movies. Even though there's pretty much next to zero action aside from the ending, it's just polite conversation between two men, but you can just feel that there's this underlying danger through everything that each of them says. And once you realize that there's a Jewish family hiding underneath the floorboards, the dread is just absolutely unbearable. For my favorite scene in the whole movie is going to be the movie theater finale. When the film reel catches fire and Shoshana's face appears on the screen and all the smoke and all the Nazis are screaming, trying to get out the door. It's haunting, but it's pure Tarantino. Just like that senseless violence I was talking about, but done in the right way. I love it so much. In class, we talked about the Holocaust, the real historical facts, the suffering, the millions who died. Watching this movie with that knowledge makes it more complicated. Tarantino doesn't show the Holocaust realistically. Instead, he has sort of this revenge fantasy wish fulfillment where the victims get to strike back. It doesn't teach us what happened, but maybe it gives emotional closure to something that can't really have closure. It also raises questions about using real tragedy as entertainment, which I just found was something really interesting, and I feel like we could really connect this with what we learned in class. Honestly, Inglourious Basterds made me feel a mix of things. There were times where I laughed, times where I was completely tense, and times where I felt a little uneasy. It's thrilling, but it's also uncomfortable. The violence is extreme, but it's also strangely satisfying when you get to see the villains get what they deserve. I think that's what Tarantino wanted. I think that's what he was trying to convey. For the audience to feel that conflict between justice and revenge. I think the movie's main message, or at least how I interpreted it, is about the power of storytelling. How movies can rewrite reality, at least in our minds. Tarantino literally uses film itself as a weapon, in the end, turning cinema into justice. It also shows how people deal with trauma and power. Everyone in this movie is trying to control the story in a different way, whether it's through the Nazis' propaganda, lies, or through the bastard's revenge. It's about how narrative gives people control when the real world doesn't. Once again, that this really contributes to the closure that this movie's just able to give us, which is something that the Holocaust wasn't really able to. There was no closure in the Holocaust. Absolutely, yes. I'd recommend Inglourious Basterds to just about anyone, as long as they know that it's not historically accurate. Maybe not one of my history teachers, maybe not Mr. Callis or Snyder, but it's not really about what happened in the Holocaust. It's more about like what we wish we had happened in the Holocaust, the closure that comes with the ending. It's exciting, it's creative, and it has a ton of memorable performances from Brad Pitt to Christopher Waltz. Even if you're not into war films, and I would definitely say that I am, but it's definitely worth watching just for the acting and everything that Tarantino is able to put in this movie alone. So overall, Inglourious Basterds is one of Tarantino's best. It's smart, it's funny, it's bold, and it's disturbing all at once. It made me think about how movies can reshape history, for better or for worse, and how storytelling can be its own kind of revenge. It's not a film that teaches you the facts, but it definitely makes you feel something. And that's what great movies do.